me any different. Good evening, everybody. First and foremost, how far we have come. It's amazing for everyone to be here celebrating such a joyous occasion. I was telling even Dr. Deepman and the Chiefs I only had one stipulation before making the speech. That was that they gave me the diploma beforehand. It was all a dream. It started on July 1st, 2011. I started at Flushing Hospital. It was on the 4th floor. For all you guys who know what the 4th floor is, it's an absolute zoo. Super confused, overwhelmed. At that time, we didn't have an electronic medical record, there were charts flying all over the place. I was wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing. The first doctor who really got a hold of me was Dr. Asmus. Unfortunately, she can't be here today because she's at some conference in California. I remember Dr. Asmus looked at me and she goes, "Fajardo, you're so lazy. Why don't you try and do something?" At that time, I told her, I'm actually not lazy. I just am totally overwhelmed and I have no idea what I'm doing. After that, a very mindful experience on my 4th floor at Flushing Hospital was when my senior came up to me and my senior goes, "Fajardo, unfortunately, one of your patients, last name is Lee, passed away. I think you should call the family and tell them that their loved one has just passed." So me, I grabbed the closest chart and I started to call away. All of a sudden, when I was calling the number, I go, some guy picks up the phone and he goes, "Hello." And I said, "Unfortunately, I have some bad news for you, sir. But I got some terrible news for you." And he goes, "What?" And I was like, "I hope you're sitting down for this." And he goes, "I am. I'm actually sitting down in my father's room right now." So at this point, I was super confused. So I walked over to room 439. When I walked over to room 439, I realized that I picked up the wrong chart. For all of you who are in Flushing, there are about 27 Lees in there at any given point in time. So I told them, "This is very unfortunate news, but your father has a very bad urinary tract infection." A little bit later in the year, it was so great that I started night float. For all of you who don't know what night float is, it's when you start working at the hospital at 7 o'clock, from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Unfortunately for me, my senior was Dr. Carminate. My very first page that I got on night float, all of a sudden I heard into the phone, "Pero, pero." I have no idea what you're saying. Are you a patient? Are you okay? What's going on? "Pero, ven aquí." I'm like, who is this? What's going on? He goes, "I'm in the emergency room, just come down here." So fine, I end up going down there. When I finally get down there, all of a sudden, this guy, who I now newly found was my senior, kept saying the same word over and over again, "Pedo." His English was terrible. Hence, he started speaking Spanish to me because my last name is Fajardo, let alone does he know that I'm actually Filipino. We had probably one of the most confusing, awkward conversations in my life. Later, during my night shift, there was this very fast-speaking Puerto Rican woman on the 2nd floor. I didn't understand what she was, but she was in a lot of pain. So I decided, Dr. Carminate, I called him up and I was like, "Can you please come down to translate for a patient for me on the 2nd floor?" Dr. Carminate came down. So I looked at the woman who was in obvious pain and I said, "Dr. Carminate, can you ask her, are you in pain?" Dr. Carminate calmly looked at me and said, "Miss, are you in pain?" At that point, I clearly knew that I was in trouble for nothing. When we first started Flushing, we had a conference room. This conference room, for all of us, as we know, was called the 3C conference room. 3C conference room was more of a war zone than it was a conference room. The walls were half painted. The screen, the projector was like half tilted, so when you actually were looking at something, everyone was looking this way. But more importantly, there was a hierarchy of the way that people were seated within the room. Even till this day, within the room just like this, you guys have the medical students all the way on the right, then the interns midway to the right, the second years in the middle of the room, the third years all the way to the left, the fellows close to the door, and the attending zones hanging out the door. The reason for this is because our intern year, there is an enormous hole that was just slowly but surely creeping up from beyond. Now that hole is not there anymore, but every single day, Dr. Beekman would always wonder, where are the medical students? And I told them, they're probably lost in that hole in the recent comments. By the end of our intern year, I thought it was a great idea to hold a cheeseburger eating contest. To no avail, in our intern class, I'm sure that all of you knew that Dr. Mullet would win this contest. The goal of the contest was to actually eat as many cheeseburgers as you could within 10 minutes. Surprisingly, Mullet put down 25 cheeseburgers in 10 minutes. Coming in second place, for all of you who don't know, is TJ Lopez. TJ Lopez ate 24 cheeseburgers. Immediately after sweating in 100-degree heat and then eating 24 cheeseburgers, he took off his shirt and he surely injected himself with 20 units of insulin. It was one of the funniest moments of my life. At the very end of my intern year, I had the absolute pleasure of working with a particular professor. His name was Dr. Bob. Dr. Bob was boarded with more things than anyone could ever imagine. And I remember presenting him we only had 2 patients at the time. I presented the first patient. This is a 68-year-old female, came in complaining of shortness of breath, past medical history, hypertension, coronary artery disease, had status post-2 stents a couple of years ago. Keep on going and going and going. Then Dr. Bott all of a sudden stands back and like he normally does. And I start to tell him the assessment and plan. When I tell him the assessment and plan is that this lady is short of breath secondary to a CHF exacerbation, we should give her some Lasix. He quickly goes, Fajardo, no. Out of nowhere, this enormous amount of wealth came flying my way. He said, Fajardo, I think what we should do is put her on some fluids. I think then we should get a 2D echo, and then after that, I think we should think about a left ventricular assist device followed by some other things. All this stuff was new to me. I had no idea what he was saying. So I looked up to my senior for help. My senior at the time was Summer Zhang. I'm not sure if Summer Zhang's face always looked that way, but she looked very confused. Luckily enough, I actually graduated into second year. Thank you, Dr. Beekman. When we went into our second year, I was always very disgruntled about the way that our vacation assignments were actually placed. The way that our vacation assignments used to be was that they used to pick a date. On Thursday at 5:39 p.m., you had to send one email, not 2, but one email at 5:39. So Dr. Beekman and I got into a very big dispute about this because I thought it was the most unfair thing in the world. God forbid, you had a patient who was crashing at that time or whatever. So I soon learned this number. It was extension 5939. I know a lot of you don't know what this extension is, but if you get this number, well, trust me, it's not a good thing. That is Jasper's number. So I got this page, 5939. I know exactly who it was. I've been paged this multiple times in the past. So I decided to let it go. Then I got another extension number. That number was 5218. For all of you, you guys definitely don't know this number. This is Beekman's direct extension. I I've gotten this number way too many times in my life to know to never call this number back. At the end, after not ever calling back this number, you know you're really, really, really in trouble when all of a sudden on your cell phone you get Teaneck, New Jersey giving you a phone call. My third year, again, thankfully graduating into my third year, I had this crazy night on night float. And all I can remember was me admitting like 13 patients in the emergency room. After admitting 13 patients in the emergency room, I was so tired, so I decided to go up to the call room. When I went up to the call room, all I heard, I passed out. And when I passed out, all I hear is, I have no idea what the sound is. So I decide to go outside of the call room. When I go outside of the call room, I see this thing flying in between the call room. I then see Labitu come out of one of the call rooms. And Labitu goes, "Hey, Fajardo, it's Piet Piat. He's super cool, he's friendly." Yes, there was an actual bat in our car. I asked Labitu why the bat was in the car. He goes, "Because it's wrap day. There's a lot of leftover food." Later in the year, I had the absolute joyous occasion of working with Dr. Iacobu in the MICU. I remember this like it was the back of my hand, with Dr. Iacobu and everyone was having rounds. Whenever we have rounds, we have this enormous huddle of people, it's about 10 people. When we have this huddle of about 10 people, one of the nurses, her name was Jessie, came by and said to Dr. Iacobu, "Hey, Dr. Obamavici, how was your weekend?" He tried to shrug it off. Everyone else didn't say a word. Fajardo was in the back on the ground, rolling around laughing. Dr. Iacobu then quickly grinned at me, looked at Jessie and said, "Hey Jessie, if I was Dr. Abramovich, I'd have a little bit less here and a whole lot more down here." Later in the year, I had the pleasure of working with our hematologist-oncologist, Dr. Chaudhry. Dr. Chaudhry, with all of her brilliance, I never really understood it, but there's a lot of Indians within our program. Everyone always considers someone their Indian auntie. And now we understand what they're talking about. So Dr. Chaudhry, we meet up with this patient. He's about 62 years old, has multiple myeloma. We're talking to him, we draw his blood, and then she's like, "Okay, let's go look at the peripheral smear." So we go to the microscope, and she sets me underneath the microscope. She goes, "Fajardo, what do you see?" When I look underneath the microscope, I go, "Oh my God, I see the rouleau formation, I see all this, I see that." She then tells me, "Fajardo, you have to turn the microscope on." After turning the microscope on, I start looking, I'm looking at all these different things. Oh, look at the white blood cells, look at the platelets. I go, "I totally see what you're talking about, multiple myeloma." She then slaps me over the head and she goes, "Fajardo, you have to put the slider underneath the microscope." So this leads me to probably my most exciting thing ever in my life. Dr. Haralambu in the MICU one time came up to me in the hallway. He goes, "Yo, Fajardo, I got the coolest thing you've ever seen." Me thinking this, I'm going, what can he possibly be saying? So all of a sudden I take off with him. Fast-paced jog, maybe a run towards the MICU. When we finally get to the MICU doors, I'm thinking all in my mind, is this going to be tension pneumothorax? Am I going to intubate someone? Are we going to see adult respiratory distress syndrome? So we go through the MICU doors. We keep running. Now my heart's really pounding. My blood's flowing and everything's going on. We make a quick left into the stairwell into the MICU. We go down about 2 flights, and then all of a sudden, I see Dr. Haralambu. behind the window. For all of you who don't know who Dr. Harlambo is, probably 4'11". Over this window. So I'm looking out the window, and when I'm looking out the window, I see a couple of pigeons. Okay. So who cares? There's a couple of pigeons. Then all of a sudden, Dr. Harlambo whispers in my ear, he goes, "Fajardo, just wait for it." So all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'm sitting there, and I hear, "Caw, caw." There's this absolutely gigantic hawk that swoops out of nowhere, picks up one of the pigeons, and flies off. He goes, "Told you, coolest thing I've ever seen." From then on out, we had about 20 interns waiting for that same experience sitting out there. Dr. Beekman, I know they took a lot away from a lot of the time, but trust me, it was well worth it. Now I'd just like to give a few thanks to some of the people that personally helped me contribute to the person that I am today. So first and foremost, in the ICU and pulmonary, I see that we have Dr. Canetta here. I didn't see Dr. Aiko or Dr. Harlambo, but Dr. Canetta, thank you so much for teaching us everything related to the ultrasound and everything. I placed my first subclavian with you. I even placed my first, oh my God, Swan-Ganz catheter. There you go. Shows you how interested I was in placing that Swan-Ganz catheter. Dr. Gondel, I'm not sure if you're here or not, but I remember the first conversation that we ever had. He told me, "So Fajardo, what do you want to do later in life?" And I go, "Well, I have no interest in hematology oncology, if that's what you're asking." You're brilliant and you're caring. If I ever have cancer, you'd be the guy that I go to. Dr. Naeem Chaudhry. Geez, you're one handsome man. I'm glad that you chose Flushing medicine over Bollywood. I'm surprised I haven't seen you move your hips yet, because the way you dance is fantastic. Dr. Asnes cannot be here today, unfortunately. She sent my regards. Me and Dr. Asnes, more so than anyone in the hospital, we text, because I have no idea what's going on with infectious disease. When we first started, she called me lazy. She also called me not for hard out, but for hard head, for good reason. Our cardiology department is amazing. Between Dr. Lopez, Dr. Minyar, and Dr. Rao, and Dr. Gupa, I can't give enough thanks. I've never learned so much about cardiology in my life. I've learned more about EKGs and echoes than you can ever imagine. The cardiac cath that, the last one that I will ever see, with Dr. Jahar tomorrow, should be fun. Especially for Dr. Gupta if he is here. I know that Dr. Bhatt's shoes are way too big to fill, but it's very glad to have you as part of the team. Dr. Rappa. No one in this hospital probably teaches better than Dr. Rappa. I've always remembered this. We used to call it wraparounds. It was the most rapid thing you've ever seen. With so much insight, and so much information, and so many good things to be heard, it was great. The only thing I can say about Dr. Rappa is that he's still stuck in the 80s. He has this blown out haircut and a mustache. All I need is some bell bottoms and it'll be complete. Dr. Salinas. I can't really make fun of you because you're such a good guy. I know that you're leaving for Italy soon. I will leave for Italy too. July 1st is just around the corner. Delay the headache. Dr. Klein and Dr. Pike. I didn't see Dr. Pike here, but I sure did see Dr. Klein. Dr. Klein, where are you? He's not in the room. He's probably outside for a smoke break. I would always know when Dr. Klein and Dr. Pike got mad at me because Dr. Klein would always have a flushed face. Even Dr. Pike. You knew Dr. Pike started to get mad because he went from English to Spanish to Korean very quickly. By the end of the day, I had a flushed face and I had someone screaming Korean at me. I'm so glad that I did my clinical experience at Flushing Hospital. Dr. Tamar, what can I say about you? We have a very weird relationship. Believe it or not, mine and Dr. Tamar's relationship started off when I told her that I actually read the trilogy of Hunger Games. So I lent her the books, let alone for the next couple of years, would she be coming in and telling me about Katniss Everdeen's adventures, trials and tribulations. After that, Dr. Tamar knew that I had a previous history working in construction. So she would always tell me, hey, Fajardo, how do I lay down this wood floor? I got some sheetrock, I got some trim that I need to do. I said, you just gotta do this, you gotta do that, and everything here and there. This year, we upgraded to Game of Thrones. There's only 2 episodes left, and Dr. Tamar, you better dress up as a dragon for watching the season finale. Dr. Beekman, I'm unsure what kind of relationship that we have. Very tumultuous at best. Though I will tell you this, is that your work is definitely underappreciated. I remember one time, Dr. Beekman actually called her into her office, and she called me the California kid. I wasn't exactly sure what she meant by that. She goes, Fajardo, you know what's so weird about you? Is that you seem so lazy, but you're not. And I go, I know, it's a hidden talent. I try to do it all the time. So ever since then, Dr. Beekman gave me a Fajardo beeper. So as you all know, we have a radiological emergency beeper, we have a chief on-call beeper, and then if, God forbid, anything goes wrong, we have a Fajardo beeper. From here and there, I would just like to thank everyone, for the nursing staff, to the phlebotomy team, to the security, to the ancillary staff at Flushing Hospital. The last person that I would like to thank is Michelle Jones, the PIC nurse. Is Michelle Jones here? Good, because she's crazy. You all know what I'm talking about. I love her, but she's crazy. Just a brief couple of words about all the fellow residents that I got the pleasure to work with. Oh, Becky. You're the most straightforward and honest person I've ever met. When we were second years, Becky straight up told me to my face, Fajardo, your sign-outs suck. And I told them good luck at North Shore LIJ, working in infectious disease. Chrissy Choi, where are you? I can see you flushing up already. Trust me, I have nothing bad to say about you. You're one of the most kindest people that I've ever met. Although you do have that Korean fire in you. I've seen you get pissed at a couple of people, and trust me, I would not be one of those people. Good luck at your rheumatology fellowship at Cleveland Clinic. Dr. Elias, hands down, one of the most cool, calm, and collected people I've ever seen. I don't know what he's gonna do without Resnick's help. Every single time I've seen Dr. Elias, he is always with Resnick. Basically holding hands, getting coffee, getting lunch. Dr. Elias, just because you go to Pittsburgh, does that mean that you can get alimony? Chief Maldonado. I was gonna say congratulations on recently getting married, but that shows you what's gonna happen.
God.
Truthfully, I don't know what it is about Spanish. I've developed my Spanish working at Flushing, but I've always had a hard time actually understanding what you say to me. I'm not sure if it's because you guys speak it so damn fast, or if it's just me. But it's okay, because whenever you laugh, it reminds me of the Count at Sesame Street. To the cheeseburger eating champion, Dr. Muller. You are the sweetest and most sincere person that I've ever met. Until you place food in front of his face. He goes on a rampage, and all bets are off. Is Dr. Raz here? Dr. Raz is probably the smartest one out of all of us. She's not going into medicine. For everyone else here who probably knows, Dr. Raz's husband owns about 22 Taco Bells. I can see Mullet's eyes lighting up already. Dr. Resnick. It was very funny because Dr. Resnick, whose home country is actually in the Ukraine, just recently went back. Surprise, there's a revolution. Rizzo, Senor, ¿cómo está? If any of you don't know, Rizzo is the most thorough person I've ever met in my life. All the interns in the back of the room can probably tell you this. I overheard Rizzo's conversation with one of the interns one time, and he goes, "What kind of DVT prophylaxis this patient is on?" Rizzo, the intern replies, "AT pumps." So Rizzo thoroughly investigates. What kind of AT pumps are they? Intern replies, "I have no idea. They're AT pumps." He goes, "Well, how much pressure per square inch do these AT pumps provide?"
Manny.
What brand of? You get the point. I've always laughed about Rizzo because he has the highest continuity of care in the entire clinic. For all of you guys who don't know why, the Flushing happy ending brings a whole new meaning. Anna, just like Chrissy, I have nothing bad to say about you. You are the kindest person in the whole entire world. When I go down to South Beach and I have a very outrageous night, I'm sure you'll be taking care of me anytime soon. Chief Wang, I haven't seen Jennifer here tonight. That's very unfortunate. In my own opinion, I think that Chief Wang is actually more than a chief. I've been calling her general for the past 2 years. She's hands down the best chief that Flushing has ever seen. Truthfully. Even today, she's not even here. She may be in South Carolina, but she had Chinese food delivered for all of us for graduation day. I can't express how amazing she is. Fen Fen. I love your accent, Fen Fen. For all of you who don't know what Fen Fen sounds like, she sounds like this. Hi, I'm Fen Fen Wu. The funniest story that I have to share about Fen Fen was last summer. Last summer, Fen Fen went to City Field. The reason why she went to City Field was because she saw a gigantic roller coaster and a Ferris wheel. Let alone did she know that this was an electronic music festival. This is where 18-year-olds go to do drugs and dance all night. Fen Fen, don't bring your baby to electronic music festivals. The very last person that I saved was Zainab. Zainab, me and you have become the most unlikely of friends. I'm not gonna lie to you, when you first started off, I thought there was something strangely off about you. You're always very antsy and moving 100 miles a minute. Let alone, my secret is out. I have been slowly putting Adderall in your morning coffee from intern year, so just now where I got your dose just right. There's a couple more things that I would just like to say in regards to my entire class. This is the point where most people normally say good luck. I don't think that any of our class needs luck to be at the point that we're at. Luck had no part in passing step 1, step 2, or step 3. Luck had no point in Rizzo having the highest continuity of care. Luck had no point in Resnick saving a 28-year-old female with an asthma, with a PCO2 of 258. And luck had no part of Zainab being elected to do ID at one of the most prestigious programs in the country. Last but not least, I'll finish up on this. I know for a fact that no one else could be in the same position as me if your family wasn't as supportive as mine is. So, first and foremost, I'd like to thank my little sister May, who's here with us today. Thank the Lord there is someone in this world who got into more trouble than I did. He made me grow up very quickly. My little brother Mike is the most talented musician you've ever seen. Michelle, you're more of a second mom than a sister. Thank you so much for providing all your love and care. Grandma, I'm so lucky to have my grandma here today in the audience. Whenever I got in a lot of trouble when I was a kid, my parents always used to ship me off to my grandma's house. Let alone did they know that my grandma made the absolute best pasta sauce in the country. Grandma, the only reason why I got in so much trouble was just to eat your pasta sauce. Dad, I know that you're more proud than anyone to be here today. My dad is this very small individual, very quiet in the front. For all of you who don't know, I have to give my most tremendous support to my mom. She is this very loud Italian woman sitting in the front row. Mom, be quiet, I can hear you from here. There's no doubt in my life that you gave me the most support and the most love, and I wouldn't be here without you today. The very last thing that I'm going to say to everyone here, both the interns, the second years, and the third years, is one piece of advice. That piece of advice has to deal with not worrying about healthcare reimbursement. I always hear about doctors talking about how upset they are, about how much and whatever they're making. Every day I walk into the hospital with a huge grin on my face thinking that this is going to be the best day ever. I've always noted in my life, and I swear to this one little saying, that it doesn't matter where you party, it's who you party with. And truthfully, the internal medicine class in 2014 is a great place to party with. The last thing I'm going to say is a couple of really weird things that happened in the last couple of months.
How many last? No more last things.
While passing in their radiology, some girl came up to me. I've seen her before or whatever, but she whispered in my ear, "Come over here, come with me." So, as all you know, this is not the first time that a woman has whisked me away into a dark room. She said to me, "Fajardo, whenever you walk around, I've noticed that you always have the biggest smile on your face." And I secretly told her in her ear, "That's because I just got laid."
You're stupid. Oh my God.
2 weeks ago, I had probably the most amazing thing in the world happen at City Field. I went to City Field where the Mets were playing the Dodgers. When I walked up, it was me, my cousin, my little brother, a couple of college friends, and a couple of high school friends. I got there a little bit late because I was working in the emergency room. I was still wearing my scrubs, and so we went to the right field porch, and I continued to drink a beer and watch the Mets play. Let alone, the Mets quickly went down 3-1. Out of nowhere, a woman tapped me on the shoulder.
It's a good thing we
This
don't know
woman
any
came
of
up
these
to me
people.
and told me, "Thank you so much for everything you've done." I had no idea what she was talking about. This woman then said, "You saved my father's life." Her name was Patty. A couple more innings went down. The Mets were down even more runs. Then out of nowhere, another person came up, walked up, tapped me on the shoulder. It was Patty's brother. Patty's brother goes, "Thank you so much. I can't tell you how much you at Flushing Hospital means to me." After that, the seventh inning came around. A couple more of their friends actually came around and said, "Thank you for everything you've done and everything that you mean to us." For everyone, every doctor sitting here in the room, everyone knows that this is the best feeling in the world. And that's why you become a doctor. A little lengthy, I know.
One last thing. What? Very last thing. Very last thing.
Send this to the lab. Okay, we have a little change in plans. So, two things we're going to do, and then in a few minutes we're going to eat. Over here, remarks from the rest of the residents.